People are importing 25-year-old fishing boats from Japan and paying to ship them across the Pacific Ocean. And once you understand why, American boat shopping will never look the same. At first glance, these look like nothing special. Small aluminum workboats with enclosed cabins, faded paint, Japanese characters still visible on the hull. No gleaming gel coat, no flashy graphics, no chrome accents catching the sun. Just weathered metal and functional lines that suggest decades of hard use. But the Yamaha DX-25 and Yanmar 24 quietly do what most new American boats struggle to accomplish. They survive decades of commercial abuse, handle rough water without complaint, and keep running long after modern recreational boats have been scrapped. These boats are appearing at U.S. auctions, on specialized import sites, in boatyards from Alaska to the Gulf Coast. Buyers are paying $15,000 to $25,000, plus another $5,000 or more for shipping and import fees. And they're not buying them as restoration projects or collector pieces. They're buying them to use. Every day. In real conditions. The phenomenon doesn't make sense until you understand what these boats were built for. Japan's coastal commercial fishing fleet demanded something American recreational manufacturers never had to deliver. Boats that could work every single day, in serious seas, for 20 or 30 years straight. Boats where failure meant lost income, or worse. Yamaha and Yanmar answered that demand with vessels built to a standard that seems almost excessive by today's recreational market expectations. Thicker aluminum, simpler systems, engines designed to run 10,000 hours without major overhaul. The result is a category of boat that was meant to be used up through decades of daily punishment, but proved so overbuilt that many never wore out at all. And now, as American buyers discover what Japanese fishermen have known for generations, these aging workboats are crossing an ocean to find new lives. The reason has everything to do with philosophy. To understand why these boats exist, you have to understand what Japanese commercial fishing demanded. This wasn't weekend recreation. Coastal fishermen in Japan worked their boats daily, often launching before dawn into waters that could turn dangerous without warning. Their livelihoods depended entirely on equipment that wouldn't fail. Yamaha and Yanmar weren't building toys for hobbyists. Yamaha's marine division developed these hulls alongside their legendary outboard motors, applying the same engineering discipline that made them dominant in power sports worldwide. Yanmar brought something even more formidable to the table. They were already one of the world's premier diesel engine manufacturers, supplying power plants to industries where downtime meant disaster. Both companies had reputations built over decades, and neither was willing to compromise them for cost savings. Japanese fishing cooperatives enforced strict requirements that went far beyond what any American recreational buyer would think to demand. Boats needed to handle specific sea states, carry specific loads, meet safety standards developed through generations of hard-won experience. Aesthetics meant nothing. Function meant everything. That philosophy shows in the construction. Where American recreational builders might specify 3mm aluminum to keep costs competitive, Japanese commercial builders used 5 or 6mm as standard. Where American boats often feature single-skin construction to reduce weight and expense, these hulls have reinforced Chinese and doubled plates at every stress point. The welds are continuous, not stitched. The framing is heavier than it needs to be. This wasn't over-engineering for its own sake. It was insurance. A fisherman stuck offshore with a cracked hull or a failed weld loses more than a day's catch. He loses his ability to feed his family. The result was a generation of boats designed with one assumption that American manufacturers rarely make. These vessels were expected to work hard, every single day, for decades. They were built to be used up. The fact that so many refuse to wear out says everything about how they were made. The heart of these boats is what keeps buyers coming back. Most run Yanmar diesel inboards, typically the 3GM, 3YM, or 4JH series, Some Yamaha models came with Yamaha's own diesel units. A few working boats have larger Yanmars, meant for heavy commercial duty. None of them are fast. None of them are trying to be. What these engines offer instead is something harder to find. They simply refuse to quit. Naturally aspirated, mechanically injected, designed to run all day every day for years on end. There are no complex computer systems managing the fuel. No electronic injection to fail at the worst moment. No sensors sending error codes that only a dealer can read. Just diesel, compression, and combustion, doing what physics intended. A mechanic with basic diesel knowledge can work on these engines anywhere in the world. Diagnosis doesn't require proprietary software or specialized equipment. Problems announce themselves honestly, and repairs use tools that exist in any decent shop. The maintenance reality is almost boring. Change the oil. Replace the filters. Bleed the fuel system if you let the tank run dry. That's essentially the whole program. These engines routinely cross 10,000 hours without major overhaul. In automotive terms, that's the equivalent of 500,000 miles. Some have logged far more and still start every morning without complaint. Parts remain surprisingly available because Yanmar diesels power everything from sailboats to tractors to industrial generators across 6 continents. This isn't an orphaned platform with dwindling support. It's a global standard. The contrast with modern trends is hard to ignore. Recreational boats increasingly come with complex electronic diesels or high-strung outboards packed with technology. More horsepower, yes. More speed when everything works. But also more failure points, more dealer dependency, more expense when something goes wrong. These old Yanmars ask for almost nothing and deliver almost everything. They don't impress anyone at the fuel dock. They just run. Every feature on these boats exists because a commercial fisherman needed it. Nothing is decorative. The enclosed cabin wasn't designed for comfort on sunny afternoons. It was built to survive 4 a.m. runs in January seas, keeping crews functional when wind and spray would otherwise end the workday before it started. The aluminum construction tells its own story. Fiberglass dominates American recreational boats because molds are cheaper to produce and easier to scale. But aluminum offers something. Fiberglass cannot. It doesn't blister after years in the water. It doesn't develop osmotic damage that spreads invisibly beneath the surface. It doesn't delaminate when stressed. When aluminum dents, you hammer it out. When it cracks, you weld it. The repair is often stronger than the original. The layouts reveal priorities that recreational designers rarely consider. Wide side decks provide stable footing when hauling gear in rough conditions. Low gunnels make it easier to work nets and traps over the rail. Deep cockpits drain themselves automatically, shedding green water before it can accumulate. Cabin arrangements put visibility first, with helm positions designed for scanning the horizon rather than admiring teak joinery. At 24 to 27 feet, these boats occupy a useful middle ground. They're small enough to trailer behind a standard pickup, eliminating marina fees and expanding where you can launch. Yet they're genuinely seaworthy in ways that similarly sized American boats often aren't. Japanese commercial fishermen work these hulls offshore in conditions that would keep most recreational boaters tied firmly to the dock. What these boats reveal is a design philosophy shaped by consequence. When your income depends on your equipment, you don't tolerate weak points. You don't accept features that look good in brochures but fail under stress. You demand structures that handle the worst days, not just the best ones. These boats were drawn by engineers who understood that the ocean doesn't care about warranties or marketing claims. It only respects what actually works. The practical reality of importing one of these boats is simpler than most people expect. They come through various channels: direct purchases from Japanese auction houses, specialized brokers who handle the paperwork, occasional inventory from U.S. dealers who've already done the legwork, Shipping adds $3,000 to $8,000 depending on the origin port in Japan and where you want it delivered stateside. West Coast ports are cheapest. East Coast or Gulf delivery costs more but saves the trouble of a cross-country trailer haul. What you're actually getting for that money is a boat built to work. A typical DX-25 or Yanmar 24 offers an enclosed cabin with basic accommodations, usually a V-berth forward for sleeping, a small galley area, enough headroom to stand comfortably out of the weather. The cockpit is large and open, designed for function rather than entertaining. Fuel capacity is generous because commercial fishermen needed range, not frequent fuel stops. Most imports show honest wear. Faded gel coat on the cabin top, scratched windows, cushions that have seen better decades. This isn't a concern. The aluminum underneath doesn't care about cosmetics, and the mechanical systems typically need nothing more than fresh fluids and filters to run perfectly. Owners usually update the navigation electronics and add creature comforts suited to American expectations. New VHF radio, modern chart plotter, maybe a proper stereo. The bones stay exactly as they were. The ownership math is where everything changes. A comparable new aluminum boat with similar capability, something like a Hughescraft Ocean Pro or North River Seahawk, runs $80,000 to $120,000 or more. A well-sorted Japanese import at $25,000 total represents a completely different value equation. The people buying these boats understand that math. Commercial fishermen who recognize serious construction. Cruising couples who want reliability over luxury. Experienced owners who've watched expensive new boats fall apart and decided there must be a better way. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, people importing 25-year-old Japanese fishing boats represent something larger than a quirk of the used boat market. It's a statement about what buyers actually want when they stop listening to marketing and start paying attention to results. The phenomenon is a quiet rejection of assumptions the modern recreational boat industry has operated on for decades. The assumption that boaters want luxury over durability, that they'll trade longevity for features, that newness matters more than value. These imports prove that a significant number of buyers disagree. The Yamaha DX-25 and Yanmar 24 exist because Japanese manufacturers served customers who couldn't afford to compromise. Commercial fishermen needed boats that would start every morning, handle every sea state, and last longer than the loans used to buy them. That demand produced engineering that recreational markets never required and therefore never received. These boats aren't antiques. They're not curiosities for collectors who want conversation pieces at the yacht club. They remain more capable, more durable, and more reliable than much of what rolls out of American factories today. That's not nostalgia talking. That's thousands of owners discovering that properly built equipment from 1999 outperforms shiny equipment from last year. In a market full of boats designed to a price point, built for occasional weekend use, and expected to be traded in before the warranty expires, these Japanese workboats stand as evidence that better options existed. They still exist, for anyone willing to look beyond the obvious choices. People aren't importing these boats because they're trendy. They're not importing them because they're cheap, though the value is undeniable. They're importing them because they're properly built. And in a world where that quality has become genuinely rare, properly built is worth crossing an ocean for. If you found this interesting, subscribe for more deep dives into overlooked boats, vehicles, and machines engineered to actually last. Thanks for watching.